So to get us started, I'm going to start out with my 3H pencil because we're going to give ourselves some structure behind our drawing that'll help us down the road. But we want to be able to super cover it as we shade. So I'm going to start with my 3H pencil. I've got my HB and my B pencil waiting. Ooh, so we're going to practice eyes separately, just like on their own page, because that way you can have a page, like if you want to keep practicing eyes, you've got an entire page that you could just go crazy drawing eyes on. And that way we also leave the proportions diagram that we came up with. We don't hide any of those good reference notes. All right, so I've got my H pencil. I've got a fresh piece of paper. And so what's going to happen, we're going to just do one eye for the sake of the demonstration. When you are drawing eyes for an actual portrait, I would recommend that you draw them both together at the same time. That way they're more likely to match. But for the sake of the demo, we're just going to do one. So the first thing I'm going to do, again, I've got my 3H pencil. I'm going to give myself a circle on my page. And I'm not going to fill my whole page because I want to have room for eyebrow, etc. But I'm giving myself a nice, really light circle. And why am I starting with the circle? I'm starting with a circle because, like, as you're drawing, especially when you're trying to render things to look three-dimensional and look realistic, we want to remember not just the surface of whatever we're drawing, but also like the material that makes it up, especially when you're dealing with people. Yes, we've got the outer side of us is skin, but a lot of our shape and how people look is determined by their muscles and bone structure underneath. So, in light of that, as we're drawing an eye today, we're going to deal with the fact that, like, eyes in your head are fully round. Like, there is an eyeball, and it's called that because it is the shape of a ball. So we're going to reflect that as we're drawing as well. So I've got my eyeball here ready to get started. To help me really identify where I want curves to go and where curves need to go, I'm going to go ahead and decide generally where my eye is looking. So I'm going to say my eye is looking here. It's not directly in the middle. I don't generally do them directly in the middle because it gets a little intimidating when you're drawing an eye that's staring back into your soul. So it's a little off to the side. And I'm going to give myself just a little dividing line here. Now, notice it's not a straight line. It's not a straight vertical line. It starts and ends where a vertical line would. However, it curves just slightly to meet that dot. And I'm going to do the same thing horizontally. So again, it's not, my dot is actually looking just a little bit below the middle line. So rather than being straight across line, it's going to start and end in the middle, but it's going to curve slightly below. Just to really start that illusion of the fact that this is a ball and it's round. Since we're dealing with where our eye is looking, I'm going to go ahead and place my pupil right around this intersection. It's going to look like a little bit like a crazy robot target, but that's fine. And then I'm going to make my iris defined just beyond that. So the next thing I'm going to add is I'm going to start to get my eyelids in place, just the light contours of where those exist. So if I'm looking at where my pupil and my iris are, and I'm going to say this is my left eye. So this is the outer edge of the face. Here's a nose, bridge of the nose. So to place my eyelid, I'm going to start at the outer edge of my eye. And you know what? Because my eye is looking off to the side a little bit, I'm actually going to come just in just a little bit. So it's not quite touching the edge of my eyeball. And I'm going to bring this curve up, just overlapping the top of my iris. And then I'm going to bring it down beyond the outside of my eyeball here. So I did overlap my iris just a little bit. And then when I go to get my bottom eyelid in, I am starting again, just a little bit inside of this ball actually. I'm going to let it curve to where it meets the iris before it starts to come back up. And I'm leaving space for my tear duct. I almost feel like this iris could have been larger. We're going to make this bigger, this eye larger. So there's a good pupil. And that's going to work out better, I think. Okay. So I've got a larger iris now. So again, I'm starting just inside my ball here. It is angles, curves up. I'm overlapping the top of my iris, and then it's coming down. And it's going beyond the outer edge of my ball because that's where your tear duct is going to be. And then same thing for the bottom. That's fine, Adam. This demo is going to be in Nearpod later this afternoon, so just follow and catch up there. So I'm starting just inside the ball. It's curving down. And like how much of your iris is showing is kind of dependent on like how wide open this person's eyes are. I can overlap down here a little bit too. Are they squinty? There's not going to be a whole lot showing then. And then again, it comes back up leaving space for the tear duct. Okay. So at this point, I've done enough of my like super light stuff. I don't really need my H pencil anymore. I'm actually going to. We're gonna jump to the 3B pencil now. 3B. And we're gonna start with this pupil and iris situation so that we can start to make this feel a little bit more like an actual person. So obviously we've got our pupil's going to be dark. So I'm starting by defining the outer edge with my 3B pencil, and I'm filling it in with some nice pigment. I'm using rounded marks because I don't want my eye to look streaky. This is where we can start to use some of that tissue paper too to smooth and blend things out.
Yeah, they've only got their email address, so it, yeah, gotcha.
All right, so then we're moving on to the iris. And the iris can feel kind of tricky. So you might end up turning your paper some as you're doing it. But how I usually do my iris, you can use some of that 3B to go ahead and outline the edge of the iris that you can see. It's not like covered up by eyelid. But the next thing that you're gonna do is I will take my 3B pencil and I'm gonna do a little zigzag ring around the edge, and it's not all the same length. So notice how like some marks are longer than others, but they're all aiming towards the center of my pupil. All the way around as much as you can. And your iris is always going to be darker around the outside edge. So I'm making sure to add a lot of my pencil around the edge, and then I'm going to light even more lightly, continue to fill it in. So it's darkest around the edge, and then I've got it lighter in the middle. And I'm not going all the way to the pupil. Before I fill this all the way in, I'm gonna leave myself just like a little bubble off to the side. This is called a catch light. So when you look at somebody's eyes and you see those flecks of light, that's called a catch light. And so we're gonna leave a space for that there. And then again, I'm pulling out my tissue. And now I'm going to blend it, again, going from all the way around from the outer edge towards my pupil. And I'm going to blend it all together. And I missed my catch light a little bit, so I'm going to go back in with an eraser so that I still have that. So at this point, this is where I'm relying a lot on my 3B pencil to give me some really good pigment on my page, and then I'm using my tissue paper to really maneuver that pigment around my page. So before I super fill in the rest of my eyelid, I do want to get myself that little crease because the eye here is open. So I'm going to have a second line starting just above my tear duct here. And it's going to follow the curve around the eyeball to our like little center mark. And then come back down and just a little beyond. And I'm starting to add some more layers of shadow in here because this is where the crease in your skin is. So it's going to be darker. And at the same time, I'm going to start to add some more pigment on my eyelids themselves, or like the edge of my eyelid itself. And on the bottom as well. Now I'm not pushing the pencil very hard. I'm just adding a number of layers so that it's on the surface of the paper and I can blend it. So I'm going to start by blending to create the shadows for the rest of the eyeball that you can see in this white area. I'm going to pull from my eyelid just a little bit, not necessarily, like I'm not scribbling back and forth across the white edge. I'm just pulling it from my eyelid towards the center. And the outer edges are going to be a little darker because they're more around. Same on the other side. And we're going to start to move the pigment in our crease as well. So again, I'm gently helping push it around the page and diffuse it, spread it out some so that the darkest part of our shadow is where we added our pencil mark. But it's also working its way around. And if you start to feel like you're really rubbing the paper, you can add more. So you figure the highest part of your eye, so like right where your pupil and your iris are, that's going to be the lightest portion, and the edge, the corners to the left and to the right are going to be more shaded and shadowed. I'm adding a little bit more shadow in this back corner here. We're going to want to get some shadow happening under the eye as well. But the trick with under the eye, you don't want it to be too heavy because you'll start to look like you're giving the poor person bags under their eyes. So a lot of times I'll take my B pencil and I'll give myself a stash of pigment off to the side here, which I can then use my tissue to pick up. And I can use my tissue to pick up some of this pigment and figure you're going to get some darker corner over here, a little bit darker in the center over here. And I'm, again, just lightly rubbing this onto the page. You don't want to grind it into the paper. One, because it breaks down your paper, but two, because it also gives you streaky effects. What we're working on right now is we're working on, shading in the skin around the eye. And we do want your skin to end up looking fairly smooth. So I've got a darker part near the corner and a fairly darker part under my pupil. And then everything else I'm just kind of uniting so that it has some pigment connecting it together. Before we forget, let's go ahead and get our tear duct in. I'm just putting some pigment in here fairly lightly with my 3B pencil. And then I'm going to use my tissue again to blend it nicely together.
Well, I mean, that submetal will never change. We have current online today servers that will be using the quote core IP that will be in your whitelist.
I don't want to make it too dark, but it should be darker than the white part of the eye that we have going. All right, last time, let me see what we got. Ooh, Alexis is looking good. Ben looking good. Suzette looking good. Sergio looks nice. Abe looking good. Emma looking good. I like it. Annelle, very nice. All right, so hold on. Let me switch cameras so that you can see me. Okay, so for homework tonight, if you feel like you want some more practice drawing eyes, if you look in the Nearpod, there are 3 guided practice sorts of just like picture diagrams where you follow the steps in the picture. This video will be up there probably in about 20 minutes. But what you're going to want to do, because remember I said that yesterday's celebrity portrait was our first one. Today, I want you to draw the second celebrity portrait. Use the exact same photo as yesterday. However, you can add the contours of your features, only shade in the eyes. Only shade in the eyes. Don't shade in anything else yet, just shade in the eyes. We'll add to it tomorrow and Thursday as we go. What questions do we have? I want you to draw a second one. Don't think of it necessarily as redoing it. We're creating a comparison. So, like, that was our first, that was our baseline before you knew how to shade things. And by the end of the week, we'll have a second one after you've learned how to shade things. What questions do we have? Nope. Awesome. All right, I'm here for a few more minutes if people want to hang out if they've got questions. Otherwise, have a wonderful afternoon. Draw your second, start your second celebrity. Only shade the eyes. Only shade the eyes. Have a good day, family. Bye. Bye. Have a good day. Bye, Sergio. Hey, Suzette, did you got questions for me? Suzette.